Good evening, Mr. Kapila. First of all, thanks a lot for finding the time to interact with us. As we have already apprised you that GIZ, along with the Bird, with the support of CDF, is organizing a hackathon where we are soliciting the ideas on making agriculture more climate resilient. As you're aware, climate change is a challenge for all of us, and I think next generation is going to face this problem in a more serious terms. So the topic becomes more topical in the sense that India, being such a vast country with so much of variation in agriculture practices, probably we need to be more focused on what could be done in future. And today we intend to talk about one of the most important thing of agriculture cultivation is water.
Yes.
And you would agree that water is no doubt the most, I think it is a lifeline for all of us, not only the plants, but even all the animal kingdom itself. Already there has been some note of this issue across the globe, and India also, the efforts are being made. Last year, we had International Year of Millets, where millets were given the emphasis because of water only. And when I was head of the UNDP at State of Madhya Pradesh, we also had a very extensive study, satellite study done, where we were trying to see how the water conservation or change in the agriculture practices could take place due to the water. So we would like to discuss and learn more about this issue from you, from your rich experience of having worked in particularly various parts of the country, especially in northern India. You have been in touch with so many farmers, FPOs, and other entities who are operating at the ground level. To start with, we would like to know what are the real challenges of the water vis-a-vis the climate change or agriculture in the nation today?
See, firstly, water itself is not only an Indian issue, it's a universal issue. It is, the health of the ecosystem, and it's a matter of human survival. If you look at it at a very basic level. And it's not only agriculture. We tend to think of water, but water affects our towns, cities, villages, rural areas, agriculture put together. The focus has been somewhat, I would say, muted on agriculture and more on industry and domestic use. But agriculture itself draws 70% of water worldwide, as an estimate by the United Nations and other bodies. And right now, natural disasters, weather-related floods are all a reality. If we come to within our country, I have one broad point firstly. There is a huge dependency syndrome of looking at the government for resolving issues, especially at the local level.
Okay.
We had in the hills a very good system of, sharing of water rights and water. People used to negotiate it out downstream. That has sort of gone out. And the question of equity, equality of usage, we have not been discussing this. Another area which we must talk about is, are we prepared for climate change through spring sheds and watersheds? Are we planning for dryland farming? Are systems in place? Number 3, agriculture is decentralized. Why isn't water? We keep water at a very governmental level. That, one more point, is it an economic good or a free good? It's an economic good. If it's an economic good, should we price it? If you have to price it, considering the nature of agriculture we have in small holdings, what would be the pricing? So these are the challenges as we go along. And then if we look at the very basic part of a farm, if we look at water saving measures on farm and off farm, it also implies a certain sacrifice of land for such measures. Considering the size of our holdings, that itself is a challenge. We have to put together measures more holistically maybe, but these are the broad levels which we face up to. And how do we go about it is also another problem for us. The challenge is more managerial. It is also based on reality of climate change. It is based on capita requirement. It's based on requirement of cropping pattern per se, whether we have to change cropping patterns also, and what suits our country. And most important, if you talk like in the context of Punjab sometimes, Area reduction under paddy is good. Equally important is food security. So we have to balance not only the farmers, we not only have to balance the small size holdings and whether it's a priced good or an economic good, we also have to balance the need of national food security. These are the broad parameters around which we have to function.
Right. I agree with you. I think you used a wonderful term, water pricing. I think, yes, now everything has to be seen in a commercial perspective. And it is true. Everything is very important. Air is becoming costly, water is becoming costly. So, what is your take on water pricing vis-a-vis agriculture? And that too, I would like to have your inputs on. There is a need of water for the different crops at the different levels in different parts of the country. Being such a large nation, we have different agro-climatic zones. So, how do you portray water pricing vis-a-vis the broad spectrum of agriculture in India?
See, if you look at water pricing per se, we have 2-3 points to consider first. Water should be priced or not. Firstly, that's a question. Because we have to consider the size of our holdings. It's not a free good. It was once 30 years ago, 40 years ago. It's not now. Now it's an economic good. That's an accepted part of life. Now, once we say it's an economic good, it's not really a private sector good. That it will have a water market of its own. We have the water market will be essentially with the state. Now, what should it be priced at? And what should be the way forward? There are 2-3 parts to it. One, if we want to change the cropping pattern per se, then we have to price the water at a level where there's a disincentive to misuse the water. Only the optimal usage should be encouraged. That is how we should look at the first part. Then if we come to the part 2 about the water pricing, we have to the first part was, of course, pricing as per water usage. The second part, when we bring it in, is how do we price it for the small and marginal farmer? Should there be a subsidy? Should the government extend it? Thirdly, should we recover operational and maintenance cost at least of the infrastructure in place? Ideally, we should be recovering a part of the fixed cost. If that is not possible, can we at least recover operational and maintenance costs so that the system is self-sustaining to some extent? Then coming to the fourth place, it cannot be just the infrastructure up to the farm point. We will have to develop at farm level also a system of maybe underground pipelines, drip and sprinkler systems as per cropping patterns, and even take a review, even if you want to go up to organic and natural farming with micro and drip irrigation, food security again kicks in. That part again has to be balanced. So the government has to carefully calibrate crop production, water usage, pricing, and the economic aspects of our farmers. But the pricing should be there. It should act as an incentive also, as also a disincentive. If we have in Punjab today electricity, which is free at tube well level, the aquifers are being not replenished at the speed at which they are being used. The only way out would be better pricing, smart meters, and at least we should price some part of it. That will improve at least the utilization of water and bring in efficiency. So again, efficiency has to be brought into the system. Broadly speaking, this is the way forward as far as I look at it for pricing. Then the fourth thing, are we looking at measuring the volume of water used, or do we go by the traditional revenue system of how much is the cropping pattern, what is the area, multiply the two and levy a charge? Even if you go by the traditional system, you will find a huge gap between the water rates which were decided and being used today, or rather applied. There's a huge gap. We have maybe even gaps of 10 to 15 years in revision of water rates. That also should be looked at regularly. And of course, it could have a cascading impact on the pricing pattern, but then we'll have to live with it as the climate change kicks in. We have to be prepared for this eventuality.
Dinesh, let me take you back to the days of 1984-85, something of that kind, when we all joined NABARD. then only there were the subject or issue or topic of diversification in agriculture. Talked about a lot, whether the first such report had come from PAU Ludhiana only, and subsequently it was taken across the various states. And but has that really made an impact, or is this a solution, or what do you feel? Diversification agriculture, where are we, and what do we want to do? Especially again in context of the water required for the various crops. So what do you say on that?
See, diversification sounds very nice, but then it automatically presupposes you will put in place systems for the diversified produce. We talk of horticulture, but then if you look at quinoa crop in Punjab, this year the rate has varied between 8 to 12 rupees a kg, sometimes even lower. I talked to a few farmers, some even large, and they were all saying this is totally non-viable. We might as well dump the produce. And the rate at the farm gate is 8 to 12 rupees. At Chandigarh, 260 kilometers away, it is between 50 to 55 rupees a kg. Right. It went down to around 40. The gap is huge. I'm not bothered about the trader margin per se for this discussion. But the point germane is, if the farmer is not going to get a viable price, then the diversification is going to be a challenge. The farmer must get a viable price to the extent whether we have a price deficiency support system or whether we have better negotiable rates. We also require mini cold stores and cold stores. We require warehousing and we require efficient markets. Even if I go up to Himachal, any number of startups have also suggested mini cold stores are the answer for Apple. Not only just the main cold stores. But the problem comes in, who's going to make the investment and how will it be fruitful? That becomes a sort of problem over here. So coming back to diversification, everybody says horticulture produce is producing much more volumes in terms of pricing. The farmer is getting it. That is the totality of it. But my challenge with me remains, I have been a person, I'm not really an economist. I normally focus on what is the farmer gaining out of it. If the farmer is not gaining a viable price, he is not going to diversify, especially in mature markets with assured irrigation like Punjab, Haryana, and to some extent Himachal, Jammu, Kashmir also, where by precipitation of snow we have irrigation. They require a better model. A farmer who can reconcile with some weather challenges, maybe in Maharashtra, is not going to be the same farmer in Punjab. They have been used to a certain system. They have to be brought out of it with some degree of incentives. Alongside, where the challenges come, the political angle. The moment you made electricity a free good, as I mentioned, diversification has become a challenge. Because when the pricing of water is free and the electricity, now, from where is the incentive for a farmer to go ahead for producing anything other than paddy and wheat? Smart metering has been protested. It's maybe not a wise statement for me to say, but smart metering has been protested by farmer unions itself. And why do they protest? The implications are clear to us.
Yeah.
How do we go about that? It is doable. But as I said, it is not only a challenge of weather and climate, it's a management issue. It's an administrative issue, which we are not coming to.
Dinesh, you had for a very considerable period opportunity to lead NABARD in the hilly areas of northern India. We'd like to learn from your experience as your work with the hilly terrains of the nation. How does the water be more significant over there? And particularly if you could throw some light on the Shivalik part of the hills, where we are more interested to know, it'll be a pleasure.
See, in the Shivaliks, I worked with two organizations, which I felt very pleased and happy to share. One is Space by Dr. Surinder Singh Grewal. He is the founder of the Sukhamajil projects and really a name in the field. The second is Mr. J.P. Singh from ISPAR. Not that well known. Unfortunately, I would like to make a broad statement that we don't in the Northwest appreciate such efforts. to the extent maybe the other parts of the country do.
Okay.
Dr. Grewal has worked in Sukho Majri. After that, he has taken to Borni Hills. These are the older vestiges of mountains. Borni Hills are just around 30 kilometers from Chandigarh.
Yeah.
He has worked across the mountain ranges up to 4.5 feet height. And we have found 3-4 things. Firstly, these are actual forests, not man-made. There is no perennial source of water there by way of snow-fed mountains. These are dry hills. But the very existence of natural forests and shrubbery has brought about water. Spring sheds have been conserved because of the forest. That is being utilized by farmers downstream. Our efforts were simply to introduce higher productivity by better farm management practices, replenishing and repairing water courses, developing some new flow irrigation channels, and sitting and talking, hand-holding extension. Let me assure you, it has worked wonders.
Okay.
It has brought about higher productivity. It has brought about higher incomes. But now let me add one proviso. Whenever I have gone to with Dr. Grewal to the field, whether in service, and even now I do so, people say, "Aap hat jaoge, hum bhi hat jayenge."
Okay.
The dependency syndrome, like I said earlier on, the government then switches to the NGO or the society which works with them. They must have the ability to come forward after 2 to 3 years. That ability, 75 years after independence, when education has spread so much, still eludes us, is a challenge for me. That people will say, "Thank you. You spent 3 years with us. You taught us the way forward. We don't break off per se, but we reduce our presence." That's the way I put it. We still guide you, but we move away. That part is not happening. Dr. JP Singh has worked in Africa, Rwanda. He works with ISPR in the foothills of Panchkula district, the lower Shivaliks, lowermost. He has developed subsurface drainage systems and irrigation systems. He makes dams across the channel. It leads to storage of water underground, which he then taps and takes it to the fields. A very good effort again. But what is lacking is, as long as the farmers are there being handled by the agency, there is a very positive response. And one challenge which has come up is, as productivity has improved, our access to market is not improving. Pricing per se is good. Tomatoes of Dyoti in Morni Hills at around 4,400 feet sells for around 45 rupees a kg at the market, which is a very good price for the farmer. But the land holding being small, the income per se does not really go up. But if we go to turmeric, if we go to ginger, we don't get the market. The markets are in, say, Jaipur. Again, the middleman's role becomes too important for us. So the challenge lies in the market if we improve productivity. That is one area. Number two, aggregation of farmers into FPOs. This has been tried in the Shivaliks. It has been quite successful. But how to put it? Frankly, honestly, don't make FPO or FPC a fashion. It's a challenge. It is a 5 to 6 years challenge to handhold and take an organization forward. What is happening is, now the government also says, so say the state government also wants to set up FPOs, we also want to set up FPOs. There's a multiplicity of FPOs there. And farmers start fishing for where is the maximum subsidy. And the aim is join an FPO to get subsidy. It switches from the crucial aim of bringing people together to form a more commercial, vibrant organization. How do we go about it is still a challenge. I still feel up north, how to go about it and put it on ground. But overall, as in terms of productivity growth, in terms of production, I found working in the hills pays if you develop the land, maintain the irrigation systems properly. Where required, we have developed bouleys. Where required, we have developed storage structures. We have developed reduction of velocity structures, and we have repaired the cools. And even at times, a small grant of 5 lakhs can create wonders. And since you have been kind enough to interview me, let me add one last part, if you don't mind. CSR organizations do not understand the scale of this, and the minimum amount of investment creates such a huge benefit.
Yeah.
So while I have been trying to market these projects on my own also and along with Dr. Grewal, etc., we find it's considered mitti ka kaam and not really, glamorous enough to draw attention. But actually, this is ground level field work which gives very positive results.
That means there is something wrong in our presenting the things properly. That's the problem, the catch of it.
Maybe that, and maybe from the other side, the perception that how does it work out? And plus, there is no publicity for the organization in remote areas.
Right. So now we'll go move to the next topic, and the last topic is regarding that. What is your take on dry land farming or zero budget farming? Well, these are the new topics which are emerging, and I've been working with the Chief Secretary of Andhra Pradesh earlier, Mr. There we have been doing a lot of innovative work. So what do you say that? Is it coming up well, and what would your be take on it? And given the cropping style we have in Haryana, Punjab, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, how good it is a solution for these areas?
See, if I look at Punjab, Haryana per se, I do not look at dryland farming really as an answer, or even natural farming. Firstly, how much of the data is really correct? How many studies are out there really which say this is a paying proposition for the farmer in terms of his income? There is a certain lag. There are problems in it. So while we tend to play up certain angles, we have to be very much aware that the farmer puts everything to a test of his farm income. And only then he will go forward for that. As far as therefore, this question of dryland farming is concerned, I do not really look at it from that point of view for this part of Haryana and Punjab. But yes, the drier part of Haryana, towards Rewari, Mahendragarh, Narnaul, etc., they are making efforts there. Again, Dr. Surinder Singh Grewal has been working on water structures in the Aravalis, in the Gurgaon belt, and he has taken corporate sponsorships also and worked hard on it. And even livestock has been benefited, livestock rearing, because the ponds once replenished are used by animals for drinking and for resting, like by way of buffaloes. So livestock has also been benefited, as also has been generation of vegetation. And small clusters of trees, forests, etc., and shrubs have again come up. So that is very much possible. But per se, we have to look over here at more, I would not call it natural farming. We have to look at it as more regulated farming. The word regulated for me means precisely the application of those inputs which are actually required in scientific terms after soil testing. So we require more regulated farming rather than a switch over totally to, say, natural or other forms of farming. A regulated farming is what is required, because what is happening even today, farmers require these inputs much more. While we think they know, they don't. Many. So we require that. And the outreach has to be through collectivization. The youngster has to be encouraged to sit with us. I would always say, even I have joked 1 month back in some gathering, I don't want chitti dadis. I want the youngster who is actually going to farm to come forward. For such seminars, the youngsters send their dads. We don't want them. We want to sit with people who are actually on the ground. And there are a lot of youngsters who are in the field, who are doing well. Let's not only look at paddy and wheat. There are youngsters who are employing themselves, their own labor on field, generating good incomes. Somehow, they don't get the attention which they should be. But all the same, we come back to the crucial issue of water. Water has to be managed properly. In the hills, it's a challenge. We tend to think of hills having no challenges. In fact, water is a crucial challenge over there. You have a few seasons when the water is there, the runoff happens. After that, where is the storage? Have we created that many structures? Have we ensured that the forests and plantations are such that the denudation of the slopes is not happening? There are challenges there. We have seen the climate change itself in Himachal, whether it is global factors or local factors of deforestation and our urbanization. We do not understand so far clearly, but we have to understand the hills are equally affected as downstream. But in the hills, let me stress one good project which NABARD had taken up. Since I'm employed there for so many years, it comes up in my reference. We tried a project of poly houses extensively. It would have been around 17,000, integrated with micro irrigation systems, with a subsidy component, which the central government was leading, along with the state government component of subsidy. So the farmer, I think, was not paying more than 20 to 25% upfront, which also was being arranged through bank credit. This really encouraged vegetable farming across Himachal. It has been a great success. This model can work. The poly houses were not simply poly houses. They were designed for geographical heights. Tribal areas separate for the snow, then mid-hills separate, downhills something separate. What would be the design? How would they be designed for? What would be the cropping pattern inside? What could be the vegetables? Even booklets were published, pamphlets were published. This has been a good success. That is one way forward where you take it up as a mission mode. But the challenge comes, each state machinery seems tired. The ability to really push and give that last mile a push becomes a challenge in terms of manpower, maybe because recruitments have been slow over the years. And if I look at the other part, kindly let me add, with civil society organizations, the problem is for rural areas, we don't get the manpower we feel like having. So the person who really can work on field, yet give you good inputs for policy, they are two separate fields. But we require a person who has both the ability to work on the field, yet produce a policy input. Such people are lacking because the field itself is not considered paying enough. So that is where the challenge lies even for civil society when it associates with the government in such areas. This is one major challenge which I have been looking at over the years. How do we plug this gap? This is one challenge that comes up.
Yeah, very right. Well, I think it's been wonderful interaction. To sum up the last thing, what would you say be the way forward, especially this issue being such an important and critical to all of us? What are the solutions for the future which you foresee can be the topics on which one should be working on?
See, if I may say so, firstly, there should no be there is no place for despondency. Okay. Mankind, we are great survivors from where we started and where we have reached, if we look at it in a prism of centuries. So this is a challenge. The challenge will be overcome. It's a period of transition. Civilizations have faced this earlier. Earlier, they did not have technology. Now we have it. So if some great civilizations faded out, they faded out due to the challenge of water. If you look at Iraq, Mesopotamia, etc. But here today, we have technology. We have access to technology which can warn us in advance, which can guide us what should be the type of cropping pattern, which can guide us what is the soil retention level required, moisture level retention required, what are the soil conditions, which can guide us even in future forecasting of weather systems, and what should be the farm practices to be adopted accordingly. If we have the use of tech, which we certainly have, and an optimistic attitude, we have to couple it with strong administrative structures. If we have the two together with a more aware society, which is ready to act on its own, after learning, after getting the inputs, which is less dependent, whether on the society, which comes forward, civil society, or on the government, we can certainly work it out. It will happen. No despondency. If there is going to be a problem, yes, we will overcome it. I have seen it. I've seen it on climate change projects taken up at micro level by us in Himachal Pradesh, which I have been heading last before retirement, and it worked. There were a lot of challenges. People had to be taught, people have to be made assured that don't worry about this year's excess rainfall. It may not happen next year. Then they have to be assured it's a one-time runoff over 1 week. What about the next 1 month when nothing happened? You have to slowly guide them. But once you do so, it starts working out. So I remain inherently a positive man on this. It will be overcome, but we have to have the patience and the sagacity to understand it.
I think, Mr. Kapila, I would like to thank you personally from my side as well as from the organizers, that is GIZ, BIRD, and CDF, for giving us your time. And it was really a pleasure to listen to your experience to such an important topic, which we all are now rested with. And probably in future, as we go along with the hackathon and other ideas, probably we'll seek your advice and participation in making the tools more effective at the ground. Thank you so much.